there's a fundamental disconnect, I think, Josh, between people who feel this sense of, I'm going to say, entitlement, and those who understand that there are things we do in our society for the public good. And the public good, even though it may not benefit you directly, it benefits you indirectly because it creates a more stable, functioning society. It's the reason why we have taxation. It's so that we can create a society that benefits everybody, and that creates stability.
Alrighty, welcome in Alabama Politics This Week. I am Josh Moon. That is
David Purcell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did that surprise you, David? What the hell happened?
Sorry, I froze out there for a second. Sorry about that.
Like Mitch McConnell over there. What the hell?
Oh, please, not that. Please, I'm too young for that. I'm here. I'm ready to go.
We are. Listen, we've got Steven Reed on as our guest this week. Montgomery Mayor Steven Reed, and Mayor Reed made us get up earlier. So that may be maybe that's the cause for both of us being a little off the game today. But listen, we've already recorded it, so we can tell you we got a very nice interview, nice long interview with Steven Reed. Yeah. I think we'll answer a lot of questions about a lot of different topics, and address some things in a very smart and nuanced way.
Sharp guy, I think man. Sharp guy.
He is.
Love talking
He's a sharp guy.
to him.
It's nice to hear people that are focused on problems and trying to address them in smart, meaningful ways that will reflect well and have good positive results well into the future, well past when he's going to be mayor. I think a lot of the things that are taking place in Montgomery will be beneficial for generations to come, and I applaud him for a lot of the stuff that he has been able to do. Speaking of applauding people for things that they do, let's applaud the Wind Creek Entertainment folks, Porch Band of Creek Indians, who are fond sponsors of this program. We really appreciate them. It is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment for a reason. It's because they like what we do. We like what they do. It's a pretty good match because we, for the most part, leave each other alone. We say, hey, we like you, you like us. Let's just keep being the people that we are. And that's, I mean, honestly, they never ask for anything. They never, I'll say, hey, you okay with the reads and stuff? And they're like, perfect, going great. And I'm like, all right, we'll keep doing them. And now they really like the things that you said and bringing up the stuff with, the Black Chamber of Commerce and those partnerships and things. They like the opportunities that have come about with us. I know that they are looking at doing some stuff with some HBCUs around the state, starting with Alabama A&M and ASU, and so, man, it's been, I think, a partnership that's been beneficial for both, and I think they would say the same thing. Matter of fact, they have said the same thing to me, and so and they ask us to do nothing on the show other than just say, hey, remind people that we're sponsored every now and then. And so we do that every week. And listen, we've both been to these resorts in Wetumpka and Atmore. We're probably going to go back. Matter of fact, it may be just me and my little one because we're going to go to the beach, and my wife is already going to be there. And so we're going to just go and probably stop at one of those and stay overnight. And I can't think of a better place to go. I mean, she'll have a ball with all the little different food options and the arcades, because we never really talk about this, but they've got kids arcades at these things. And
now, at the one in Wetumpka also?
I believe they do have the one in Wetumpka, but I know it's the one in Atmore has one. And it is, I know this from Arthur Mothershed, who's been on here. He said, it was recommended that we put this in, and he said we did it. It's basically just an afterthought. It's been one of their most popular attractions that they've
Nice.
ever installed in one of the places. It's
Really?
just,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
He said there's a ton of people go in there all the time. They've got the bowling alley at the one in Atmore as well, and I'm telling you, go online and check these places out. Wind Creek Entertainment. Google them up. Look at the facilities. Look at what they offer. Look at the amenities. Look at all the spa, the restaurants, the gaming, the whole 9 yards. They do a fantastic job, and they sponsor this fine program. So,
Yep.
really, what better people could you ask for? All right, let's get into it. I know we've talked about before the overtime tax repeal. We've had Anthony Daniels on to talk about this, and the fact that it appears as though our legislature is going to let this thing lapse. And now that's, from what I've been told, that's basically a done deal. They're going to they're going to let this go away. They're going to reimpose the 5% state sales tax, or state income tax, on overtime pay instead of basically it being a reward for workers.
So to be clear though, this is something that passed the legislature just 1 year ago.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Last session they passed this.
Yes.
And it was time. It was it had a time
sunset.
cap on it.
Had a sunset.
Sunset.
Yeah.
That's the term I was looking for. Yeah. So it had a sunset for this year unless they pass another bill extending it. So for me, the question is, why, if it was good enough last year for the Republican-dominated legislature, why is it not good enough this session?
Well, here's what they'll tell you. Okay, here's what they'll tell you is this thing cost us way more money than we thought it was going to cost us. It cost us way more money. We projected it to cost about $30 million. And that those figures. And listen, I want you to see if you can spot the flaw in this line of thinking. Okay, so they projected, based upon previous receipts, tax receipts for the state, they projected that there would be a slight uptick and that it would cost $30 million in tax revenue from the state, that the state would ordinarily generate in those taxes on overtime pay. So that's what they projected. Well, businesses have taken advantage of this. Employees have taken advantage of this, and they have greatly expanded the amount of overtime that is being offered. And I guess the workers have said, well, listen, there's a 5% bump on this thing. I'm going to take some more overtime myself and make some more money. And so they have taken more. So now they're saying it's going to cost the state, and see if you can tell me what the flaw is there. It's going to cost the state more than $200 million because of all these people taking advantage of this new overtime tax repeal. So can you spot the flaw in that argument?
All right, so they're saying that because people are taking advantage of it, that's an additional $170 million that they're not going to get in terms of taxes that they would have gotten.
Well, no, that's not how they phrase it. They're saying they're losing an additional $170 million. But they didn't account for it. They didn't account for this. We didn't know we were going to lose that much money. Because you know why?
Well,
they wouldn't have lost that much money. That much money was there. Nobody would have been taking advantage of the overtime tax, and so the receipts that they would have brought in would have been $30 million or less, right? So you can't lose something
what
that you never had.
Got.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so basically,
and the other thing that immediately occurs to me is, if people are doing more overtime, then it seems like to me that the GDP of the state is going up, right?
Indeed, it is.
Yeah. So isn't that made up on the back end? So what they're really saying is maybe, okay, for the education trust fund, we're not getting as much money as we had hoped to get, or we're losing 30, and there's that 170 million that we could have gotten, but as you said, it never was on the table anyway before now, so you can't really count that. but the state is benefiting in other ways.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So there's a real argument to be made if we could actually go and find the receipts and do the correlation and everything that we could, if we can actually put it together. There's a real case to be made that you're probably not actually losing anything, because all of these people that are taking advantage of this are pouring that money right back into local economies, and local tax receipts and sales receipts and things like that are being upped. So certainly though, we know from the budgets that they're not, what was projected is only $30 million less than it would have been. Okay. You're not losing 170 extra $1 million off this because more people took advantage of it. Yeah. That was money you were never going to make, you were never going to make this. And so
you can't count that. That's a phantom figure.
Yeah. And so, but the problem is, and here's the problem. Okay. And this goes to, this is all Arthur Orr's dealing. Okay. I mean, this is driven by Arthur Orr, the state senator from Decatur. He drove this whole thing. He's the reason that this thing had to be sunset after a year, because he tried to put a cap on it last year, and prevent people from taking advantage of this overtime tax break. And so he that's the reason that it's sunset. He's the one that's been driving this, talking about how the education trust budget is never going to be able to sustain this. We can't sustain it. I'll tell you the reason they can't sustain it. The reason they can't sustain it is because of all these other cuts.
That's
all these other cuts that they have in tax revenue that are coming through, including the biggest one in the history of this state, which is a $100 million tax cut right now, and a $500 million tax cut in 2 years. And that is the Choose Act, which is paying essentially for kids to go to private schools. They're using public dollars to pay private institutions for kids to attend.
And you've already pointed out, I know in your column and perhaps even on this podcast, that 70% or more of the people that are taking that are going to benefit from the Choose Act are already in private schools. So they already have the resources to either be in private schools or to homeschool their children. So what they're really doing is they are choosing between two groups of people. They're choosing between the people for whom public school is, in the vast majority of cases, probably their only choice. And people who have choices and have resources, and they're saying between the two groups who need to get the benefits, let's give the benefits to the ones who already have choices and who already have resources.
So
that's what they're doing with the Choose Act.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's what they're doing. And they're about to be doing it to an extra large degree, because currently, for the first 2 years of the Choose Act, there are pretty stringent restrictions on this thing. One of them is there are income cap on who can receive the funds. To qualify, your household income must be less than 3 times the poverty line. Now that's still a fair amount of money for in income, but that's the cap. All right, in 2 years,
because that's cap, 6 figures.
That cap goes away in 2 years. So everybody.
So then there'd be no cap.
There's no cap.
Anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it. So that means every person who currently, in all of these, your Randolphs, your Montgomery Academies, all of your high dollar private schools that are out there, all the people that the doctors and attorneys and whoever out there, the people who crafted this legislation, all of them are going to be able to take a $7,000 tax incentive, essentially, and offset the cost of that tuition. These are people who do not need it. They do not need it in any way, shape, or form. There should at 100. I would have. First of all, I've got a problem with doing this at all. There's no way in hell. No way in hell that your public tax dollars should go to a private school. I don't care if it's a Christian, a satanic, I don't care. I don't, non-denominational, no religion at all. Just your Montgomery Academy, Randolph, whatever. I don't care about all that. All right. It shouldn't go to them.
Yeah, it shouldn't go to them. regardless of whether or not it's got some denominational, Christian denominational tie or some other religious tie or
Mm-hmm.
not. I agree 100%. But it is especially problematic, in my
Yes.
opinion, when it's going to schools that have a religious bent of whatever type, because that violates the spirit of the Constitution. And it basically becomes a situation where the state is promoting religion. And we know in some of these schools, the promotion of religion is going to be done in a setting where you're going to have a cross section of people there who, in some of these schools, where the promotion of religion is going to be done in a way that is going to be problematic for some of the people there, because it's going to put their children, their families, in compromising situations. But even let's just say even that's not the case. Let's say everybody that's there wants to be there, believes in, putting up the Ten Commandments or prayer in school or whatever the case may be. The problem still fundamentally is the government shouldn't be subsidizing that.
No.
People that want to do that have every right to do it, but they should be doing it on their own dime, not on
Yes.
the government's dime.
No, it is. I mean, it's the same as saying, you know, I don't really like my local park. I don't really like it's not I don't like the slides. They're kind of bad, and I just don't feel like they're the best for my children. My children should be going to this private club where there's the country club, and they've got their own playground and things over there, and the slides and stuff there are a lot better. I want you to take my tax dollars that are going to fund that public park, and I want you to give it to me so I can pay my dues at the country club. That's it's every bit as idiotic as that. All right? This
Yeah.
is not people talk about, well, it's my money, and why can't I decide where my children go and spend my money to educate? It's not your money, you dipshits. It's not your money. It's
Right.
not. This is the money you pay to live in this society that we have determined. One of the things that we have determined is the betterment of our society is to have an educated populace. And
Yep.
in order to do that, all of us contribute a relatively small amount of money to go in to pay the teachers and the administrators and all of the people that work in the schools to create this educated populace. Okay.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's your contribution to that. It isn't for your kid, it's for the greater society. Okay?
Right.
You have no
There's a
right to that.
there's a fundamental disconnect, I think, Josh, between people who feel this sense of I'm going to say entitlement, and those who understand that there are things we do in our society for the public good. And the public good, even though it may not benefit you directly, it benefits you indirectly because it creates a more stable, functioning society. It's the reason why we have taxation. It's so that we can create a society that benefits everybody, and that creates stability. We have highways that benefit everybody. We have infrastructure that benefits everybody, other forms of infrastructure that benefit everybody. We have health laws that create an environment that benefits everybody. And that's how life works. You can't create an island, and I think a lot of these people don't really get that. You can't create an island where you're isolated and you don't have to interact with anybody and everything's going to go your way and be just the way you want it. That's not how society works. And if you try to live like that, you're going to find that ultimately you can't do it. At
Yeah.
some point, you've got to rely on the benefits that come from being in a society, and that costs something. It costs something, and we all have an obligation
Yes.
to invest in that.
Yeah, there was a few years ago, I don't know if you remember this, where Barack Obama talked about, he was talking about businesses, and he talked about people, first of all, he was a very pro small business president and did a
Yeah.
lot of great things for businesses. But he also talked about this attitude that some people have in which they pretend as though they built this shit by themselves. All right. Where it was, oh, I did all this on my own. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't do this on your own. You didn't. Listen, nobody's diminishing your hard work or your sacrifice or the risk that you took or the intelligence that it took you to build a successful business. Okay. Nobody is diminishing that. However, what you're doing is diminishing the contributions of the society around you that contributed to that. All of the tax dollars that went into the roads and the basic infrastructure, the sewer system and power lines and telephone lines and all the things that we paid for to help you build that business, to help people get to your business, to help educate the people that work in your business, to help, if it's a construction business, or whatever, all of the lumber and things that went into this and how we developed laws and roads and things that allowed that lumber to be delivered to you. And all of these things went into the building of that business. You're successful because you live in a society in which the greater good was considered long before you ever came along. And
that's right.
Now you're successful because of that. That's one pretty significant contribution to the success of your business. Okay. And if you don't like to hear that, I don't really give a shit. I don't. I'm so sick of people. God bless. I am. I'm fucking tired of people.
Well, it's as though they think everything magically appeared. I mean, we just magically got highways, magically got sewer systems,
they're
magically
so
got a power grid. Just magically, that all happened magically, but they built their business with their own sweat, blood, and tears, but they couldn't have done it without all of these things and more that you and I have just cited.
Oh yeah.
They need to wake up and understand that their success is there's a direct correlation between their success and their ability to enrich themselves, to build wealth, and the societal structure that exists around them and that they literally stand on.
Yeah. And let me tell you something else. I'll tell you something else, and then we'll get out of here. But you can expand that on out. The next steps from that, once you realize that, once you accept it, you can then expand that on out to understand the necessity of DEI programs, the necessity of how fairness and equality and how that plays into it. And I have these conversations with people all the time who talk about DEI, and one of the things I say is I'll ask them, was this easy for you? Was it easy for you coming up? And to a person, they're all, no, you kidding? Had to scrap like hell and fight for everything. I was like, yeah, and you're a white person that never had anybody standing in your way. And and so no one ever wanted to deny you a job because your name sounded a certain way. No one ever put extra barriers in front of you for a home loan or a business loan because your name was had an apostrophe in it or whatever. And no one ever did any of those things to you, but you still struggled and fought and worked your ass off to get whatever it is that you have. And now you want to diminish the fact that putting those barriers in front of people have hampered entire generations from achieving what you've been able to achieve. And you want to make it seem as though removing those barriers and giving some of these people who've been stuck behind them an extra boost is somehow unfair to you. I mean, it's just the greed and the selfishness of people every day that has really got me to some days where I'm just like, man, you motherfuckers. It's just every day it's somebody else who just got the shortest sighted, God bless, man. I don't know. All right, listen, let's talk to Steven Reed. All right, let's do it. We'll talk to Steven Reed. We'll maybe I'll calm down by the time that's over. We'll see. All right, we'll be back in a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy as always when our next guest can find the time. He's busy, and so getting on good guests, man, it's hard because you get the good guests. They got busy jobs, busy lives. They're involved in lots of stuff, and no one probably more so than Mayor Steven Reed, the Mayor of Montgomery. Thank you for coming on, spending some time with us.
Hey, Josh, thank you for having me, David. Good to see you again.
Good to
Thanks for
see
hooking
you.
the brother up. I think Josh had put me to the side. I don't know what I said or did last time, but I was trying to figure out why it's been so long since I got an invitation. So
Well,
I appreciate
no,
you
man.
looking
Well,
out.
see, what had happened was
Yeah.
everything calmed down in Montgomery, and there was no stories or anything around there, so we didn't have any reason to talk to you. And so then some people did some craziness with the school board over there with the
Uh,
superintendent search, and so I thought, well, this probably be a pretty good
uh,
time to get you back on, get a good update about where things are. And I guess there's no better place to start. The school board, we record, as everybody knows, on Wednesdays. Tuesday night, the Montgomery County School Board appointed a new superintendent, Zacchaeus Bird, Dr. Zacchaeus Bird. A bit of a controversial pick, I would say. I saw your press release that you sent out afterwards, that you were unhappy with the search process. Not necessarily unhappy with Dr. Bird, but with the search process overall. I guess just kind of tell people what happened and why this thing stirred up such controversy in the city.
yeah, I think there's been a lot of controversy around the superintendent search because people felt like it was a fait accompli from day one, and really even before day one, that the school board manipulated the ouster of Dr. Melvin Brown, and wanted someone that would do their bidding and would do their, would be more susceptible to ask them for permission to do things and to do things in a certain way. And that way has not gotten us the type of educational progress that we need in Montgomery County Public Schools. It has not gotten us the type of results that are needed. But it seemed like it was a hire out of, personality fit and comfort, and one that we can dictate and tell this superintendent what to do, as opposed to maybe the last one that we had. Someone who'd be happy just to have a job as opposed to doing what's necessary in the job.
Yeah, been around there for a while, or was around there for a while. Then I left, of course. But I covered the school board. That was one of my little beats that I had at the Montgomery Advertiser was education for a while, and I covered the Montgomery County School Board. Got to know a lot of the folks that were on there: Thomas Porterfield, Mary Briers, Melissa Snowden, a lot of the OGs, as they would call them, and got and really dug in with a lot of them, and ran through several superintendents while we were there. And I got to say, the way people talked about and embraced Melvin Brown was something I never experienced when I was there. There was never a superintendent that kind of captured, I would say, the different elements of the city. I mean, when you get you and Doug Singleton and Anna Buckaloo on the same page on things, and y'all all agreeing on the direction of the school system and where things are going. That's quite an accomplishment, I would say. And so are you worried that you're going to lose that momentum that he had built?
Oh, there's no question. We already have. We've already lost credibility. We've lost credibility locally. We lost credibility with the military leadership at Maxwell Air Force Base. We've lost credibility in the state house with our state government leaders. We've lost credibility in the private sector. I can't think of a more cataclysmic decision in this community in a long, long time than the decision to run off Melvin Brown to make his life difficult. So much so that he just decided not to uh, try to stay here and rather resign without another position, mind you, and bring on someone who has not been in the type of school system that Montgomery is, and has not possessed the type of characteristics and leadership qualities to take us to the next level. I can't think of a more serious uh, back backstep that we take in this community. In terms of education, where from the state superintendent and those on the state school board to those that are watching us nationally, as we go out to keep us in the top 2 communities for economic development and growth in this state, I can't think of a worse decision. And not having that credibility will not only impact the students and teachers who are most impacted, it'll impact parents like me who have kids in the public schools, but it'll impact our ability to sell and promote the progress in our school system and what is to come because of the short-sightedness of this decision that was made by 4 members. It's important for me to state it was not a unanimous decision. It was a 4-3 vote. And I want to commend those 3 that did not abstain, did not just go along to get along, that raised their hand saying that we needed to pause the search and make sure that we were going through with it in a way that everybody in this community could be proud of. That's what the school board did last time. I just think this time they chose the easy way out. They chose the personal way out, and they chose to go with familiarity as opposed to someone that will build a healthy tension to get us to the type of educational outcomes that we want to see for our school kids. And that's problematic for me, and it's problematic for a lot of people, not just in the community, but again, around this state.
Mayor, it sounds as though from listening to you talk, you believe that the fate of the school system and the fate of the city are inextricably linked. Can you give a little bit more detail about why that is?
Yeah, well, let me give your listeners a little history on this. So when we passed the ad valorem tax in 2020, that was the first time in this county's history that we had passed a popular voted increase in property taxes. The previous time had come through court decision, court judgment, court decree. It did not come through a referendum of the people. And a lot of that was built on my initiative to bring that up even before I was mayor. I brought it up in 2014, brought it up in 2013 for the 2014 race when I was probate judge. It got shot down quietly behind the scenes then by leaders on both sides. I brought it back up in 2015, got shot down by leaders on both sides, trying to get it on a general election ballot. So it was never, for me, good for us to put on a special election ballot because we know the only people that come out for special elections, in particular when it comes to taxes, are the hell knows. The other people don't tend to come out and say, yes, raise my taxes. So you have to get it on a general election ballot. So you have to time it, just right. And so after 2016, I thought the next best time would probably be 2020. And that was, again, long before I was running for mayor, and even my thought of being in the mayor's position. So I've had this idea for a long time. And I bring this up because there have been questions by some school board members of what does the mayor have to do with the school board? Well, I'll say everything. Because not only was it my initiative when it got down to negotiations of how much, I led the negotiations. When the first education consultant said 6 mills, I was the one that said we aren't going to settle for 6 mills. That was not enough. And I got with late Chairman Elton Dean about it. We had a great conversation, and I said both in the meeting and those that were in the meetings would tell you that I wanted what Huntsville had, because Dr. Aaron Ward Moore told us that Huntsville had been at almost 30 mills for 30 years. I think they're about 28 or 29 mills. All right. And we see what Huntsville has become over the last 30 years, right? So my deal was, why should we settle for anything less than what Huntsville has? And so Huntsville was my benchmark in Madison County Schools, was my benchmark. And Chairman Dean, in the way that he can say, said, I don't know about 19. He said, but it doesn't need to be 6. So let's see what we can do in between. And at that time, I said, well, let's shoot for 14 with the understanding that we won't settle for anything less than 12. And we'll come back after we prove ourselves to make sure that we can get exactly what our school kids had so desperately needed. I don't know if y'all can hear Bruno back there giving me a little soundtrack, but I apologize.
That's all right.
He doesn't
That's
like the
okay.
sanitation department doing the great job they're doing here in Montgomery. Something about those garbage trucks just kind of throws him off a little bit.
That's all right.
But I give you that backdrop because, you know, that was a decade ago when I first brought this up, and I'm sure other people initiated. But when we got to the point of investing, bringing about the part of investing in our schools, and that was a term that I used in those meetings, was it's not a tax increase, it's an investment in the future. There were a lot of questions and a lot of pushback about the school board. I can't tell you how much resistance there was for the school board. So much so that our school board, they were imposed as the worst performing and least popular government entity out of all of the government entities that we had, city, county, state, federal. They were the worst performing. And at the time, you know, I decided I was going to spend my political capital and go around the community and push this ad valorem increase, this investment in our schools. Not ask for anything. I didn't ask for a football field to be named after me. I didn't ask for a community center. I didn't ask for anything for Steven Reed. I didn't even ask for anything for the city. I just said do what's right by the school kids. Okay, so do what's right by them, and we got a coalition of business leaders, of military leadership doing what they could do. They can't get too involved electorally, but they signal support in their way. And then we got those who on the other side to really push for this and to really put hundreds of thousands of dollars behind it with skepticism of the school board. All right, I'm giving your listeners all this background so we know how we got to where we are right now. So then when it was polled, I had the highest approval rating, the highest name ID, and it was said, well, you need to be the face of this is going to have a chance to pass. Well, no one really wants to come in and say, hey, we're going to raise your taxes. But I felt, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it now. And it's the right thing to do. And I had people say, you won't get reelected, you know, if you do this. And I just said, well, if I don't get reelected, it'll be for trying to do the right thing. And I'm okay with that. And we went through that 10-month campaign of really to educate the community on just where we stood relative to other school systems and funding. And so the problem was the school board. Well, we banked on the fact that we could get a superintendent, a world-class superintendent, if the superintendent then had great resources, or felt that there was an investment from business as well as government to invest in our schools. And that's what happened. That's how we got Melvin Brown as a finalist, Dr. Anthony Lewis, who was from Montgomery, wife's from, I think, Elmore County, who's now at the Durham Public Schools, and anybody who knows about Duke University and North Carolina Central and all these great schools there, great superintendent. So we got two great finalists that I thought we could put on par with anybody. I was in favor of the guy from Montgomery. I thought that he'd be easier for him to get acclimated here. But I asked both of them, would they have come without the support and funding for public schools? They both said no. So I say that because it's like a coach or anybody else. No one, regardless of how they feel about their skills or their capabilities, wants to go somewhere where they aren't going to have the support nor the resources. So those investments were necessary for us to have the type of pool. And I'm giving this background because I want to just explain the narrative of why it's so important to me. It's not for reelection. It's not for me to have the funds. It's because of what education means to the viability of the city of Montgomery and thereby central Alabama. All right. And that's why it's so crucial that we have everybody on board. I didn't get all that I wanted at ad valorem tax. I said it then. I said, I'm going to come back in 5 or 8 or 10 years, or I'm going to push whoever the next mayor is to come back and get what Huntsville has. But that means we have to perform. That means we have to show the leadership and the stability to do that. And the school system, the majority of the school board has not done that. And that's why it makes it harder for us to sell to young families that we want to call Montgomery home, to jobs and to other companies that we want to relocate here, as well as those that we want to grow here who are already here, that they can be confident in our school system. This is a kneecapping of the work that we've been doing over the last 5, and I would even say prior to me coming in, 8 years, even when the school system was under intervention, the work that's been going on. I can't think of a worse move to be made in this community in a very long time than what was just done by 4 members out of 7 on that school board. So I apologize for the long history lesson, but I thought it was important for your listeners to understand the backdrop of why the mayor, in this case myself, feels this way about it, feels so strongly about it, and why it's so integral to what we do from an economic development standpoint, an education standpoint, and Josh, dare I say, even public safety standpoint, because
Yeah.
we know they aren't educated. They are the ones who are dropping out of school, skipping class, and they are the ones that are on the other side of the police um, line and where we like to see them, as opposed to joining our police force as career law
Right.
enforcement officers. That's
Right.
the challenge that we
So
have.
let me ask a quick follow up, Mayor. What metric are you using to? Well, let me phrase it this way: what metric about the Montgomery Public Schools bothers you the most or troubles you the most?
Oh, easy reading and math scores, no question.
Mm.
Easy that. Certainly, our college readiness bothers me. And then when I get down in if I kind of split the difference as it relates to black boys in particular,
Mm-hmm.
really, really troubles me. But I also am troubled by the resistance to innovation in how we teach kids these days. My 2 sons don't learn and do the things that I did. So I've had to navigate, read articles, talk to great friends of mine across the country who are in education, who are teachers, and said, man, send me something so I'll know how to be a better dad than maybe I was a couple of years ago in school, because I need to figure out how to connect. And I'm still working on that. I still haven't mastered it. But you have to be innovative. You have to look at new approaches. And that's what we had in a superintendent with Dr. Brown, who, because he was not from here, didn't feel that he had to tell Steven Reed anything that he wanted to hear, nor the school board members. Hey, here's what I think we need to do. You hired me to deliver, to do a great job. Here's where the trend lines are. And this is what we have to do to compete in these areas. And I think there were just some who felt a resistance that they were being pushed on the school board, and they were being challenged to think bigger, to think broader, and think more proactively in this space, so that the educational outcomes would be better, so that we be a more attractive school system for teachers, for staff, for parents and students outside of the magnet schools and outside of those niche programs that we have. So that's what I look at in terms of the benchmark, and that's what really drives my concern, and what I think is a detrimental decision by the school board that sets us back, because I don't believe that we now have a leadership to really continue that innovation, to close those education gaps, to improve those math and reading scores, and to be innovative in the approach that we need across the district from 0 to 12th grade, and how we adjust to where young people are today.
Yeah, you mentioned in there the tie between education and public safety, and this has long been one of my preaching points, not just for the city of Montgomery, but for everywhere. But Montgomery has specifically faced some very unique challenges,
Mhm.
self-created unique challenges, most of them built around the history of racism in that city,
Mhm.
and the way they have segregated the school system purposefully, and with a private school system, and then again, in my opinion, I know this is very, very unpopular, but with a magnet school system as well, it drains out the top performers of in every school district, and then you get those kids, they're fine mostly through elementary school, and you get them into middle school, and then everything starts to go crazy. To me, it has always been a big issue. And so our friend David Thrasher, Dr. David Thrasher, and David, I know his heart's in the right place most of the time. I've taken some issues with some of the things that he said, and I've told him so. But as a matter of fact, one of the things that I told him back when this thing first started was, is if they wanted to make a real difference there, in my opinion, I thought that they should look at what Jeffrey Canada had done with the Harlem Day School in Harlem. What how that sort of it takes kids out of the harmful environments that they're in,
Yep.
puts them in a structured, almost the same way that Valiant Cross
Yep.
does there, but even more so. I mean, they're at Harlem Day School. They're there. I mean, they're not going home at night. They're staying there. Everybody, it's they're in that environment 24/7 for the most part. So I was surprised because I hadn't heard anything else about this, but I was surprised when your communications person, Miguel, said, "Hey, ask him about our work with Harlem Children's Zone." And
Yeah.
so I'm unfamiliar, and so I'm just going to say, "What's your work with Harlem Children's Zone?"
Hey, I didn't know he pinged you on that. And I promise not to give it as long of an answer. I'm not trying to put on the Cory Booker record here, David. So I apologize for that. I will get up and go to the men's room. I don't know how Senator Booker did what he did for 25 hours, but I'm gonna get up if I have to. That said, Josh, we're proud of the work that we've been doing here, and the flag that we planted across the country for public-private partnerships. And since I came in, I've long felt that Montgomery was a national, if not international city, and could benefit from those type of partnerships. And we were selected to be a part of the Mayor's Neighborhood Academy, where the Harlem Children's Zone is going to take that model out to about 12 to 14 cities and implement that model that you just brought up. It's a cradle to career, place-based model for not just students from 0 to 12, but also their guardians, their caregivers, their parents, helping them get re-educated. And we were invited to go to Harlem with a few mayors from down cities as big as Dallas, Texas, to cities even smaller than ours in Western Pennsylvania. And one of the things that Jeff Canada shared with us is that he believes learning is possible for every student. He just thinks it's the environment, he thinks it's the approach, and it's the expectation. And it's like anything else, we have to put the time and the work in it. So he talked about and showed us, that school day that seems like it doesn't end. But he also showed us the results of the last 20, 25 plus years that he's been in this space. And we're one of the top cities that he wants to come to. He'll be coming to Montgomery probably in May, June early June at the absolute latest, to talk to our community leaders about why he chose us, why he believes in the leadership of myself as mayor, and why he thinks Montgomery is an important city for the nation to see improved educational outcomes and how that benefits everything from economics and finances all the way to healthcare outcomes. And certainly, as we mentioned, just overall quality of life. And to have a world-renowned educator like him, who is a dynamic speaker, but certainly is an even better educational leader and a greater person, to choose us out of a lot of cities that wanted to be a part is significant. So, this is kind of one of those things when you hear people saying, why is the mayor traveling? I travel because that's where the resources are. That's where the innovation is. That's where, the opportunities are, as I see them, to accelerate our progress. I make a little sports analogy, and I don't mean to make this a small answer, but I can't remember the last first round quarterback the state of Alabama produced. Josh, you're a sports guy. David, y'all know who was it?
Cam Newton. Was there
Cam ain't from Alabama.
Tagovailoa?
But they're not from here.
Oh, they're
right?
not from here. You're saying from here. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I got
okay.
you. Yeah.
So my point is, well, if you want first round talent and you want championships and trophies, you have to go outside often of the boundaries, right? And I remember hearing a story from an former Alabama player who did not play under Saban, who told me that would say they came in, he pretty much laid the law down when somebody said, well, hey, this is kind of how we recruit around here. And he pretty much told them, I'm going to recruit the best from wherever they are. And if you want to do that, you'll get the same results. You probably need to get a different coach. And that's been my approach to the city of Montgomery, whether it's economic development or whether it's public-private partnerships into our place-based neighborhoods and place-based solutions into our neighborhoods, or whether it's in education. We want the best and brightest because we know Montgomery is a historic city, a city that is really treasured by many people, even if it's not truly valued by those of us who live here and certainly come from here. So to have a Jeff Canada bring his resources, bring his network, his knowledge of education, and to choose Montgomery and say, we're going to plant a flag here, is significant. I mean, I've been to New York probably more in the last 2 or 3 years to meet with these types of folks for investment purposes and partnership purposes more than I have in the last 10 years. And I got an aunt who talks about me bad. She lives in Queens for not seeing her when I come to New York. And I'm like, Auntie, I'm just coming to do business. I'm right back out. But the goal is to do the things that we had not been able to do here as a community because we don't have the financial resources. We don't have the corporate base that Birmingham has. We don't have the federal base that Huntsville has. So we have to go outside, or else we just sit back and say, oh, well, you know, it'll come one day. Well, one day isn't soon enough for young people and families that are trying to get their kids the best education outcomes that they can. And so what I've been doing is kind of telling people why they need to be in Montgomery and why they're missing out. And somebody's listening. And when you get a Harlem Children's Zone to buy into that and then say, not only are you part of the cohort, you're a priority city and community for us, that is significant and that is game changing. So out of all the announcements, you know, Amazon, Meta, Hyundai expansion, Manna Beverages, all these things, I would rank the Harlem Children's Zone announcement as right up there being transformational for this community as any of them.
Yeah, you know, if people doubt that, simply take a look around at what, you know, a couple generations of you know, forgetting some kids or purposely forgetting some kids has done. You know, that's why I tell people all the time whenever I hear, "Oh, look at the mayor. Look what he's doing with crime in the city." And I said, "Look, man," I said, y'all want to start pointing some fingers, you ought to go look in the mirror a lot of times here because this started with some of the crap y'all did back in the 60s and 70s and some of the kids you forgot about. And a lot of people were screaming about things that happened, such as a thing that you're about to go and do as soon as you get off of here, which is go and open up a community center. You know, there were a lot of people screaming back then, you close those community centers. Hey, I went over and watched police officers go into those community centers and play basketball with a lot of those kids and play and meet with them after school and hang out and watch those relationships develop. And I watched them crumble when they shut those things down. And you know, it was those sorts of things. The education system, the opportunities, the just a place to go. The thing, one of the worst decisions I thought ever was killing the middle school sports. I mean, you set out on the streets, thousands of kids in the afternoons where these coaches were going and pick. I mean, I had a coach literally cry on the phone with me one day, but think it's so because he was talking about his kids, and he wasn't talking about his kids. He was talking about those dozens of kids he was coaching every day and what they were gonna, what was gonna become of them because he wasn't going to be able to afford to stay here any longer. So, but I guess when you look at everything now, you talk about the community centers and the things that y'all are trying to do. I know that the crime rate has gone down. That people are very happy with the task force and things and things of that nature that have happened. Of course, there's still crime, and there's going to be because it's a city of that size and has issues that every city of that size has. But do you feel like y'all have kind of gotten your hands around some stuff now, and you're starting to move forward?
You know, I don't want to jinx myself, much less be overconfident about one quarter. Oh, I shouldn't say one quarter. Really, we started to see some numbers come down the last 2 quarters, even the fourth quarter of last year. I think the true tell for me, Josh, will be how we look over the summer, right? So one of the things we brought on Brandon Dean from the Alabama High School Athletic Association. I told him I wanted the best parks and recreation department in the state. And I said, I don't care where you got to go. Who you
And
have to learn
Brandon
from.
was the best you could do? My God, man. I don't know. I mean, Brandon, I mean, I know his daddy, you know, but no, Brandon is for everybody that
You know
knows.
what? He
Y'all
is,
know I love Brandon. Brandon
yeah,
Dean is one of the best dudes I've ever known around there, and he
man,
did a
he's passionate,
fantastic
but
job.
listen,
Yeah.
he is passionate about it. He was one of those guys texting me throughout my first few years, and I'm like, all right, you don't watch out. You don't talk yourself into a job. You keep telling me Monday morning quarterback and what we ought to be doing, and what you see here in this part of Baldwin County, and what they're doing here, this part of Birmingham. He was one of those guys that really passionate about the job, and I don't think he has an end time. I mean, he's really, really into it. And I said, look, we want to get back not only to the level of where the community centers were and after school activities were when we were there. We want to be better than that, right? And go where you need to go, sign up for whatever you need to sign up for, bring back the best ideas. Because what I've learned being president of the African American Mayors Association and being on the board of directors for the United States Conference of Mayors, it doesn't matter if I'm talking to mayors that are Republican, Democrat, Independent, male, female, young, old, from Fresno, California to Fayetteville, Georgia. Everybody's sharing ideas, right? And there's no pride in authorship. Everybody saying, what are you doing about crime? What are you doing about this? All these things. And let's see if this works here. Let's see if that works. So we're all kind of, mad scientists, if you will, trying to tinker with things to see if this works based on the white papers, based on the studies that we're getting in, obviously based on our community capabilities. And so around the area of parks and recreation, thing I said to Brandon was, we got to find a way to reach these young people earlier, and we have to get them off the streets, and we have to bring them into a space that they want to come into. Now, that's not the old community centers that I was a part of, because my kids aren't going to play Uno. They aren't going to play, some of the Pac-Man games and things that we did, or even play horse. When it comes to basketball, they want gaming. They want different things. So again, our goal has been to find partnerships through gaming, find partnerships in ways to reach these young people and their parents through resource-driven initiatives and programs around health and wellness, financial literacy, getting their GED. All these things that we can help bring into the community centers, is important for us, because it plays into the first part of your point and your question around crime. So while we have seen two solid quarters of crime reduction, part one crimes, which are our most violent crimes that we see. What we see now, even the first quarter, year over year, we're down, 15%, I think, overall, and over 20% in non-fatal shootings and others. We're roughly, still right there neck and neck year over year when it comes to homicides, even though non-fatal shootings have dropped. So we're still working with our new community violence intervention team and the $3.7 million that the city and county use in American Rescue Plan Act dollars to put in that. We'll be rolling that out here pretty soon, along with retooling the Office of Violence Prevention to be more impactful and to be more proactive. So I think for us, we believe we have the right things in place. We just now have to see how long it takes for us to, get out in the community to make a difference. And for me, the true test will be the summer when these young people are out, and to see if these reductions continue to manifest themselves. And if so, then I think we will know we're on the right track, and then we can continue to expand those programs. If not, then we'll continue the tinkering and the tweaking of them to get the outcomes that we're looking for.
Hey, Mayor, before you go, two quick things. First of all, as somebody
Hey,
who
you know I don't
grew
have
up,
a quick thing. You can't tell by my answers. There's nothing really that quick about it, but I'll do the best I can.
well, it'll be quick on my end. You take your time. It'll be quick on my end. As somebody who grew up in the inner city, in the north, Chicago, south side of Chicago, I really commend you. I commend you for having this youth focus, integrating this youth focus into what you're doing on the mayoral side of Montgomery's leadership. I think that will absolutely make a difference, as you and Josh have been discussing, when it comes to crime. So I commend you for that. And then secondly, man, no disrespect to you and your team, but you just dropped some stuff on us that I didn't know. You said you're on the board of directors of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, that you're president of this African American mayors group, that's a nationwide group, and I didn't know about the Harlem Children's Zone. I mean, I was just doing some reading on that while you guys are talking. Uh, you're doing some things that I think the state needs to know about, and people need to be talking more about and understanding the connection that you're making and how that betters the state. So I just want to say your people need to talk you up more, because I hadn't seen any of this, heard any of this.
Hey, well,
Just keeping it
everybody,
real.
no, David, listen, I appreciate the kudos
Yeah.
for those things. I guess I need a better hype man, so I need to see who I can find to do a little better job of being my promoter out there. But we do it from the sense of what can we bring back to the city. And Josh has written about this for a while, and I've heard both of you guys talk about it on this podcast for a long time. Is sometimes our state can't get out of its own way. So what I decided was, I was not going to let the ceiling of others be my floor. All right. And I wanted to make sure that when it came to getting into rooms where there are resources and influence, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's through government, or whether it's through the private sector, that I was in those rooms. Because I felt like those are things that we need to accelerate the progress of opportunity here in Montgomery. And I just couldn't do that through the lowest general fund budget of any city our size in the state. I couldn't do it with the least amount of corporate investment and capacity of any city our size, or the least amount of federal capacity. And as I've told this story, I don't know if I've shared it with you guys before, but when I first got elected, I had to sit down with Dr. Noah, Dr. Kayvon Darabu, the known economist at AUM. And I said, we're talking about some things and kind of what I want to do. This was easily in the first 30 days. I really want to say first 2 weeks, but even the first month. And I said, Dr. Darabu, give me an economic overview of Montgomery and kind of give me your take on what we're dealing with. So he goes through the numbers, he goes through the data, and he says, basically, Mayor Reed, this is where you sit in reference to South Alabama, the I-65, I-20 corridor, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and then Huntsville. And he said, basically you're sitting on a trailer park and a housing project. Good luck. And if you know Dr. Darabi, economically, he was like, that's what we have here, right? We don't have the strongest economy. We don't have the strongest footing. And so it is a battle. And I just knew with the way things are here in this state, and it doesn't matter whether it's R or D, things tend to be slow and small C conservative in their approach. And I just figured that for me, not only did I want to make sure that I was getting the best ideas and best practices from other cities, but I wanted to be able to have access to those entities that were working with cities and their communities, because I don't have a J.D. Kaiser Foundation like my good friend in Tulsa, Oklahoma has, who's sitting on $6 billion and just basically funds their initiatives. Anything they can't do through government, if it's a passion of his in the arts, parks and recreation, youth sports, workforce development, that foundation funds it. We don't have a Warren Stevens or J.B. Hunt, and others like a Little Rock, Arkansas has, where you got these billionaires who are on the Forbes list, funding their stuff. So you got to build relationships and then make a case of why Montgomery should be a part of these cohorts to bring some of these initiatives back to your government, to bring some of these things back to your community and to your, to your private sector too, education and all those things about. So that's what the leadership and the involvement in these organizations has done. It's educated me. It's accelerated my progress as mayor and as a leader in terms of what things are working, what things aren't working, and then how to improve our community a lot better and a lot faster than I would have been able to do had I not been in these leadership roles and not been invited to sit in these rooms with national and international companies and philanthropic organizations, as well as our top government leaders, to discuss things from housing to homelessness to food insecurity to the wage gap, all these things that we know impact our city. I just hope that our state leaders would be more willing to do the same thing, because it doesn't matter if I'm talking to Tommy Battle in Huntsville or Sandy Stimpson in Mobile. There's a level of frustration that the state probably is not more active, as we see in South Carolina and as we see in other southern states, to build and grow opportunities for our residents here. And unfortunately, that's why we lose a lot of our best and brightest from the state of Alabama to these other southern states, because they see that as being a place for growth and they see it as being a place of opportunity. So my goal in those leadership capacities is to bring those initiatives back here so that people will see Montgomery and central Alabama itself in a different light and as a place that is on the move and as a place that is forward thinking, that makes them consider partnering with us and investing with us, despite really not so smart decisions that our school board or some on our school board may make from time to time. So I know it's a long answer to a short question, but that's kind of the method to the madness, if you will.
No, listen, that's fantastic. I'm pretty sure we're going to get in trouble for making you late for your next appointment. But we'll let you get out and go and run the city. And thank you so much for spending some extra time with us and and coming on and explaining a lot of things and breaking stuff down. We like this. We look forward to doing it more regularly. I'm told possibly monthly we're going to do this, and so
I'm good monthly. I don't know what I did to get banners for a few months here. I don't know.
Well, listen, we heard all the criticism. We figured you needed a little time to work, so we weren't bugging you.
Look, the criticism is gonna come regardless. That comes with that comes with the job. You always got those folks in the cheap seats.
That's right.
That are gonna critique you for what you should be doing or what you could be doing. So that's all right. But listen, don't let that stop us from sharing the good news.
That's right.
Of the gospel here in Montgomery, because there's a lot of good things happening that we want to share, and I think it's important for folks both inside the city as well as outside the city to know just what's going on and what we have and working. And if they'll let us cook a little bit more, they'll let us cook. They'll see what the outcome is going to be, and I think they're going to like where we're headed. So I appreciate you guys and providing this forum and opportunity. But yeah, listen, there's too much to cover because we didn't get into sports and we didn't get into statewide politics and national politics and tariffs and taxes and all this stuff.
That's right.
So look, you guys let me know, and I love to come on. I enjoy coming on with you guys and just talking shop. So
all right, we're gonna hold you to it. We'll get you back in here next month and do this.
That's
all right. That's real good, man. I appreciate that.
All right, that is Mayor Steven Reed. He's fantastic. We're gonna slide out. We'll come back. We'll wrap this thing up in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a minute. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and listen, I'd like to just thank God for my fantastic lighting today. I really think that I'm looking. The lighting in here is looking fantastic. I mean,
that's some inside stuff, folks. That's Josh and our fine producer in New York. Who have a running tug of war there over lighting, and Josh's lighting. But I see it's hitting you just right. There's a glow on the right side of your face.
Nice little glow.
Just right.
Nice little glow coming from the right. It's
no.
Listen, honestly, man. Every time I log in here, it's something else he wants me to do. Get a microphone, get better lighting. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's Christ. Can't we just do this? I mean, Nobody's looking at me. Nobody's tuning in here to see how my lighting is and what I look like. I mean, my God. But no, I do appreciate him though for trying to make things better. I really do.
Oh yeah.
Because that's you need somebody to keep you on your toes every now and then. Thanks to Steven Reed for spending some time with us, an extended period of time. I know he had some things he had to get to, and he still found the time to work in and stay for a while. And I mean, it really is his fault because his answers were basically Cory Booker like, as he said. So, but listen, we do really appreciate that. I also appreciate
He's thorough. He's thorough.
He's very thorough. He's very thorough.
Very thorough,
Appreciate the
yeah.
folks at Wind Creek for sponsoring as always. The folks at
Yeah.
Southern Poverty Law Center for
Absolutely.
coming on and as well. And listen, all of y'all for hanging in there with us too. All the subscriptions, all the comments, all the nice ratings and reviews. We really do appreciate it. If you would like to talk to us, if you'd like to send us an email, you can always get me at the normal emails for APR and stuff where you can find some of my work and stuff. And for me and David as well, you can get us at apwproducer@gmail.com. That's apwproducer@gmail.com. And that gets you an email right to us, and we'll read them and follow through and talk about some of the things you want to talk about. All right, to kind of wrap up, I wanted to touch on real quickly before we get to the Rightwing Nut, the gambling issue. But after the show last week, we got word that the Senate was killing gambling for this session. Garland Gudger, the Senate pro tem, said that it was too little, too late, and that was it. Gambling's dead at least that gambling bill was dead for the session. And there's been some talk about whether or not now there could be a lottery only bill, and that gets kicked around a lot. And a lottery, you don't want a lottery only bill. Okay, let me just tell you that right now. You don't want that, because a lottery only bill is going to generate a relatively small amount of revenue. Okay. And these people are going to want to take a lot of that revenue. And so the way we have it set up currently, with the comprehensive bills that have been put forward, which include a lottery, casino licensing, sports wagering, and the lottery itself. And so those things generate basically about $1 billion a year. As sometimes less, sometimes more, just depending on how it shakes out and what games they offer and allow to be put in those casinos. And so that's a fair amount of money. All right. And so with that, you can then set the lottery aside as an education lottery, which is what is most popular among people. That's what people really want, is an education. When they talk about the lottery, what they're thinking of is a lottery like in Georgia and Tennessee, and to some degree in Florida as well, where the lottery proceeds are taken and they're put into an education fund that funds scholarships. Tennessee, they have free 2-year colleges, tuition. They have, a variety of different programs there. And that's what people really want out of the lottery program. And then you have the other funds coming from the casinos and the sports wagering and stuff that funds other programs. Infrastructure is a big thing, that they want to devote some money to infrastructure, which really means a bunch of brother-in-law contracts for roads and stuff. And so, but there's also a possibility of expanding some form of health care in this state. Now, nobody wants to say Medicaid expansion, because God forbid, but that is one of the things that has been on the table previously, and that's what Democrats have pushed for, is Medicaid type expansion of healthcare that serves some of our more rural areas at least. And so that's what comes from the comprehensive bill. If you just do a lottery, outside of the ramifications of what it could mean for, the Porch Creeks and what they can do, I think a lot of that stuff is really kind of overblown in terms of what they were going to be able to do, because and it's really people that don't understand the classifications of things. I mean, like, for example, so one of the arguments is we can't do this lottery because a lottery then is class 3 gaming. And if you put class 3 gaming in the state, well, then all of a sudden the Porch Creeks are going to be able to have class 3 gaming and they'll be able to expand under it. That's not how that works. It's not how any of it works. Okay. And because let me tell you what else is class 3 gaming: pari-mutuel wagering. All right. Dog racing, horse racing, those parimutuel stuff, that's class 3 gaming as well. We've had that in this state for years, for decades, including also the Porch Creeks operate a facility in Mobile where class 3 gaming is available at the dog track in Mobile. And so, you know, the people say that all the time, and that's also just not how it works with the federal laws. Class 3 gaming is treated differently than class 2 gaming, where electronic bingo and stuff lie. It's just, I know it's complicated for a lot of people, but that class 3, there's a requirement in there that the state and everybody has to kind of be on the same page. And so there are different requirements for that. It's not going to allow it. So all that aside though, the lottery issue, you do that, and I think it takes gambling off the table for the next 25 years if we ever get it done, which means that you only have this lottery here and the funds from it and however they're going to be divided, and you don't address all of the thousands of illegal gaming operations that are taking place around this state. You don't address the sports wagering stuff and the growth that we've seen in that industry and things that is happening also in this state, where right now, I'm telling you, right now, I could place a bet sitting right here talking. Okay. I could place a bet on any sporting event in the world right now from my phone in this state, and it's legal. That's the other thing about it. It's legal. And so, those things, we're receiving no revenue from those things, and it's really idiotic.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Why in the world would it make any kind of sense not to have a comprehensive bill that addresses the myriad of ways that people can gamble in this state already, let alone in the future, perhaps, that may emerge, when we know it's not going anywhere. It's been with us. It will be with us. It doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is for the state to derive a benefit from it to offset any potential problems that may occur. We know that there are going to be some people who are going to need help because they have a gambling issue. I mean, they have an addiction. And so there are going to be some people who are going to need help. But even more than that, it provides a way for the state to benefit from this enormous amount of economic traffic that's occurring and is going to occur, whether the state stands by and benefits or not. So why shouldn't the state benefit in a way that can further, especially a state like Alabama, that already is, in need of funding for a wide range of things? Folks, as you suggested earlier, they don't want to expand Medicaid, which is crazy. But but maybe there's some way, and I don't know if this is possible, Josh. But if with this comprehensive gambling bill, maybe there would be a way for us to figure out how to bolster the healthcare system in our state. In addition to the education trust fund, but definitely it doesn't make any sense for the state to just watch all this revenue, just kind of leave it on the table, watch it walk out the door, whatever metaphor you want to use.
No, absolutely. We've put through 2 generations of kids through college over in Georgia. We've dumped in millions of dollars into educating those kids through the lotteries over there.
Alabamians have.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Alabamians have done this. Yeah. And I mean, it just, listen, there are a lot of, I get people's confusion. I get people saying, hey, why do we have to do it this certain way? Like, for example, why are we putting them at the dog tracks? I can tell you why. I mean, we could go through this long thing and I could explain this down to why it's this way, both the politics of it and the practicality of it. And I would tell you that I think it's a pretty good way to do this. I think that it's putting them at the dog track locations. You already set it up in an area in which gambling has been voted in by the people in those districts. They have class 3 gaming. They have the security. They have the background checks that have been passed. Not to mention, you also have the Porch Creeks who are opening world-class facilities. It's literally, I mean, they partnered with everybody at this point, it's in Chicago and Pennsylvania and Curacao. I mean, it's all, they're all over the place. And it's just, I just wish that I wish that this thing hadn't taken so long to get to this point, because now people have created an industry off of this fight every year. And I think that is truly the holdup here. All right. The holdup here is the fact that we've got so many lobbyists and consultants and attorneys who make millions of dollars. I wrote the other day, I would love to know how many consultants' kids have been put through college off of this fight alone, because it's
Fighting
got to be
against it.
dozens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
of them, and it's just this fight
Yeah.
that it's always, oh, this time's gonna be it. Oh, man, we just can't get it done. You know, how many times have we done this now? And it's just, it's always the same. It always seems to fall apart over some small reason here or there, you know, and it's just people. Listen, I'll give them credit. The people are experts at doing this, but
Mhm.
you know, until, that's what I've told everybody involved. My opinion is, until some lobbyists lose a job or a contract, and until a couple of politicians lose a seat, this thing's never going to get done. But as soon as the
Hmm.
first politician loses a seat over this gambling issue, you can bet your ass that next time it comes up, somebody is going to get voted through, because they ain't going. I mean, it's to the point where now it's so popular among the people that it's going to be impossible to ignore, especially once that translates into an actual election. And so
Well,
I think
and
once they start
that's
holding some people accountable, then I
yeah.
think it's going to be something that gets done.
So that's what needs to happen. Voters need to hold. If voters really want it, and every indication is that they do, then voters need to start voting people out of office
Yep,
and
and
voting some people in.
I
Yeah.
think there's going to be some people who pay a price for this one. I do. I
Okay.
think it's right on the edge of election season. I think it's going to be easy for people to remember, and I think there's a lot of people really pissed about this thing not getting done. And I think just the actual seemingly lack of effort that went into this one really has angered some people, and so we'll see. But I think there's going to be a concerted effort to get some folks out, and we'll see how it pays off. Speaking of somebody we need to get out, our Rightwing Nut. Our Rightwing Nut, once again, is one Thomas Tuberville. And Tommy has found something, David, that I mean, thank God we got him out there working for us every day, because the rest of us was unaware of this. What was it
Yeah.
he found?
I just want to read this quote, and Tuberville said this on Fox News recently. He said that he's accusing so-called woke globalists of pushing kids to become transgender athletes. So this is what he said to Fox News. We have entire men's teams across this country now that are turning trans. Women's teams, they're turning trans. There's going to be a situation where it's going to pick up speed, because these woke globalists are pushing these kids to say, if you can't compete in men's sports, let's just transition and say you're a woman and participate in women's sports. Now, that sounds absolutely idiotic and insane on its face. But here's the question. If you're going to make an assertion like that, the obvious follow-up, as you and I discussed off air, is, where's this happening?
Yeah, right.
Where's the proof?
Yeah.
Name some teams. Name some
mean,
locations where this is happening.
Even if you're the Fox News host and you are agreeing with this, I mean, if he brings this up, your next question has got to be, oh my God, where is this happening? Tell us, coach, so we can send cameras to this place and we can use this to defeat Democrats for the next 100 years. Where is this happening?
We need documentation of where entire men's teams are turning trans. And this Jackie DeAngelis on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures apparently didn't ask that follow-up, because I don't see anywhere in this story where there's any proof of that.
Yeah,
No.
no, of course they didn't ask anything. They didn't ask anything at all about this. And because they know right immediately, this is not happening. This is not anything that's happening. It's nonsense said by a moron. that is completely and utterly worthless for us in the Senate. He is completely and utterly worthless. He has done nothing to benefit this state. He has done nothing to help you keep a job or get a job or do anything else. He's there to benefit himself, and that's all he's ever been there for, was to benefit himself. He's never bothered to learn the smallest of details about the actual job or the actual function of the government, or how he might be able to help benefit some people in the position that he's in, which happens to be one of the 100 people that we choose to set in the most serious seats in our country's government. And he's one of them, and we've given him this seat, and he's done nothing but enrich himself through stock trades, and otherwise become a national embarrassment to all of us. And
Yeah, that's just the craziest statement I think I've ever heard from anybody. And that's, I mean, in this administration, that's really saying something.
Yeah,
That's
it
just
is.
absolutely on his face a crazy statement.
He doesn't have anything else, and that's just who he is. It's just, honestly, it's just who he is. So, you know, I hate to, honestly, I kind of hate to give him the attention that he so desperately seeks. But you know, because and this is what he gets attention for. And until we move past this shit right here, where we have people who are rewarded for this type of attention-seeking bullshit out there, then we're never going to get better. Until y'all, I know nobody's listening to this is rewarding them for that, but until certain people stop voting for people based off of this sort of idiotic behavior and outlandish statements and just pure propaganda stuff, we're never going to be better. We're never going to be better. We're going to be stuck in this cycle of stupid forever. So, alrighty.
It's insane, man.
It is.
Insane.
Let's get ourselves out of here. Till next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.